gentleman from Texas, Mr. Cloud, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our founding documents guarantee us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And of course, you have to start with life and the guarantee of life. And there's been a lot of discussion, of course, especially since the Dobbs decision, and a lot of, frankly, misinformation that's come out, and a lot of fear-mongering, I imagine, you know, as we lead up to an election. Unfortunately, that happens. You know, we've heard things like this is the end of democracy and all those sorts of things, when actually what the Dobbs decision did was basically say that Roe got it wrong and that there's not a constitutional right to an abortion, which is a pretty accurate statement. And as far as the end of democracy, it returned the issue to the states where people can actually vote on it and have differing ideas in differing states. And so it's important we look at this right, and obviously we know a lot more now than we did even in the 70s when Roe v. Wade was passed. At the time, it was called a clump of tissues, and we've had a lot of scientific development to know that that is hardly the case at all. Dr. Wumenhorst, could you speak to some of the technological advancements and what we now know that we didn't know back then?
Yes, I think that it's one of the most amazing things that even since I've been involved in medicine since the 1980s, to see the explosion of knowledge and care that's gone on. Specifically, that not only are we now able to visualize living fetuses with a degree of precision that was simply not available when I was training. Ultrasounds were these huge bulky machines, and there was this grainy image. You're like, well, maybe I see it, maybe I don't. To now having 3D and 4D renderings where we can see the expressions on these unborn children's faces. So what that is, I think, has helped us to do is to
emotion, you mean? Like,
yes,
yeah,
emotion,
responding
right?
to
Stimuli,
so,
to
yes,
stimuli.
exactly.
And this incredibly fascinating study that came out recently showing that when the mother would eat certain foods, within a period of time, the fetus would respond. Now, we had an inkling of that because sometimes we'll say if the baby's not moving a lot, I'll give the mom something to eat, and within a few minutes, the baby will sort of perk up. But to actually be able to see that shows us the humanity of the fetus in a totally different dimension. And in addition, we have other technological advances that allow us to intervene when fetuses are ill or struggling or have difficult medical problems. We're able to transfuse fetuses, we're able to do sampling, surgery on the bladder, surgery on the heart, surgery on the lungs, with previously lethal diagnoses. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity there that we have to recognize that opens up a whole new way of looking at the fetus as a patient.
Now, one of the big issues, too, has been some of the messaging dealing in what states are doing across the state. There's been a lot of fear-mongering about just what's going on with what states are doing to go after women and the like. There's no state laws that do that currently.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Just checking. I wanted to submit for the record as well, if I can, a couple statements that have been presented. One is from Americans United for Life, if I may.
Objection.
And then another one, and this is interesting because part of the discussion today has been to do with the reason that some would have for aborting someone because there's some sort of issue during the pregnancy. And this is from the Abortion Survivors Network. And it's interesting to hear from them as they watch this dialogue happening. People who are living and have a valuable life now who see this discussion in a whole different light and feel completely devalued in the process. So if I could submit that for the record as well.
Without objection.
I would appreciate that. There was also an interesting topic on crisis pregnancies just a second ago and what we see happening there. And there's really been, oddly, an attack against crisis pregnancy centers in the fallout of this. And that's interesting because we used to hear from the left that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, and so you would think that crisis pregnancies would be a place that we could all agree on was a good thing. But now the dialogue seems to be we should have more abortions, the better, You know, it's been odd. Dr. Kumar even mentioned that this is a racist thing when, for working in an organization that was started by Margaret Sanger, is a very odd statement to make, a racist eugenicist. Could you speak to some of the good work that's done at crisis pregnancy centers?
I've worked very closely with them in the past, and what I've found is that they are able to provide that support. A moment ago, I talked about the difficulties that women face in their decision to abort. One of the reasons they are successful in convincing women not to abort is that they offer the support to walk with her through pregnancy, to get resources that she needs. And it's not just, oh, you had your baby, you're done, we don't care about you. This continues post-pregnancy, and with new models that are being proposed, maternity waiting homes, being able to live in a waiting home even after you've had your baby, they're doing tremendous work.
The gentleman's time has
Thank you.
expired. The gentlewoman from